Hello, good afternoon. We are going to start the afternoon workshop at 6 o'clock sharp, technologies in order to improve the employability. I have here with me Tomás de Andrés, Iván Carmona and Iñaki Iraola. We are going to have 15 minutes per speech, and then there will be a Q&A session, and if we have time we will try to open a small discussion, a debate if we have time, depending on the time really. Let me introduce you to Tomás. He works for a Vodafone company. He has a vast experience as project manager in Vodafone, in the Vodafone Foundation, developing international and national projects in the field of disability. Tomás is going to talk to us about the Me Facilita project. It facilitates me. Thank you very much indeed. As they said before, I work for the innovation department at the Vodafone Foundation in different projects for people with disabilities and elderly people. Today I'm going to introduce the Me Facilita project, showing you the effort we made in the field of cognitive impairment in order to implement support methodologies in the labor environment. When we started to try and analyze, alongside with the other professionals in the field of disabilities, trying to analyze what was needed in order to reach this goal, we realized that whatever the solution, it had to focus on 4 different aspects. Firstly, the generation of information. As you will always see in this type of tools, you will see how the goal is to try and disclose different types of information, for this information to be fully accessible, understandable, and used by people with disabilities that will end up using it in the labor environment. The information is a combination of different multimedia elements that are not very common. Audio, video, images, words. But as easy as it may seem, it is not. Because as I said before, the goal is for this information to be fully understandable by people with cognitive impairments, with different degrees of disabilities, and they might find it easier or more difficult to understand things better than others. Some people will prefer videos, short videos, or images. On the other hand, information is paramount, of course, but secondly, access is paramount. Yes, we may help someone to do a certain job, but if the information to do that job is not reachable, is not accessible, we are lost. So these methods are fundamental in this type of environment. They have to be user-friendly and easily accessible by people with disabilities. So far, the environment of Me Facilita uses 3 types of access methods. The classical one, the one that we are all used to using, is the capture of information throughout different QR methods, the near-field technology, the use of technologies whereby you just approach your mobile phone and you can access the information, the relevant information you need. And another way, a different way of presenting and disclosing information, it's the augmented reality. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with the augmented reality or this type of technologies in particular. I think QR codes and near-field technology are very familiar to everyone. But let me explain to you what augmented reality is. The over-impression of information that we read on with our eyes, giving us extra information to understand what surrounds us. Information is paramount. Access to information even more important. But we must be clear about.
Okay, well now I'll go back to my presentation. The objective that we were looking for was to be able for to have persons working in a job with access to information in a way that was simple and understandable for them. How do we build information that's understandable for someone who has a cognitive disability? Well, it's very complicated sometimes, but it's all about using a way that's adequate, using different elements, audios, videos, images, voices, text. That this means that we've got to have this information at the right time and in the right format. It has to be accessible quickly and simply. Right now there are three different methods. We have the web contents, we have the NFC, and augmented reality. The QR, augmented reality, and the NFC. And you would, this way we can get information and we can know what we would need to know to execute activity. But if this is important, at least just as important is to understand how all this works, because we could have a huge combination of things, images, audio. We could connect things one way or another way. We could have QR or others. So the professional needs to know what's possible and what works best for each person. And another important point, therefore, is knowledge of what we're doing, what strategies are being built, and which ones are really successful, and what people need, what people want, and adjust the solution progressively to what is needed. Well, you'll say, well, they've got to do a lot of hard work, because building content that's accessible means having to plan how we've got to offer this to the person who's going to need it. And furthermore, you've got to be able to see if the needs are met satisfactorily or not. So it's very important to bear in mind the next point, which is collaboration. The only way that we can do this and make it compatible to the persons who are trying to use it, the disabled persons with cognitive disabilities, is through collaborative processes, being able to take to use the knowledge that each one of us has about the other. So let's take advantage of the knowledge that one has. And if we center now and focus on supports, I'd like above all to mention one aspect that, as I said at the outset of my presentation, we often think about what the support needs to be like for a person who has cognitive disabilities. That support is built by a professional, developed by a professional who does not necessarily have to be an expert. So if you can imagine, if I get before different professionals and they are saying, you're going to be able to build something in a mobile environment using certain process, many of these professionals would look at me like I was crazy if I had never done this. But if we're not able to achieve this, we can't achieve anything, because the persons with the disabilities are going to use what these professionals build. So it's important to have simple mechanisms in place. For example, that's what I would like to specify for the information, for audios, videos, and multimedia, and for them to work properly. We need professionals who have to use these different solutions, and for many it's no big effort. Right now The device itself can record video, audio, images, and upload that information. The information is there, but what's really important is that following a process, we have many people who have followed others. How do we understand the type of how do we capture what others follow? The image, we see the person with the cognitive disability. We have a big button, and when we click on that button, we capture a QR automatically, and the professional can print it out and have it on cards or visible so that the person can see it. This is the sum of strategy from the big button and what we call the big button, and a few clicks with the NFC. Something that is very similar. I can get a label in NFC by clicking on a button, and I've got the information there. I don't know what technology is, but I know I can get that label. This information is meant to be shared, and those supports that are considered most appropriate and best evaluated and valued by professionals, so that there's a starting point. It can be used and personalized, but this is a starting point, and it can be quickly incorporated even if one is not very familiar with it. What happened to us? Well, initially we started with a pilot study in Madrid that was also very centered in Madrid and Seville as well. And we realized that to achieve, to be able to support a person, it wasn't enough just to look at their working environment. Someone who is autonomous in other aspects of their life is autonomous in work. So the working environment wasn't enough in this case. We needed to go out and see the rest of the person's environment. And the idea is that a person can be made autonomous everywhere. And this will allow you to see where we are right now in Spain. We've got more than 40 organizations working with this environment. We are working with different organizations, different persons within those organizations, and we're going to make a big jump forward now and try to see if these strategies will work in Europe. We have a project that will be scaled up to 6 countries in Europe. Up until now, it was about offering useful information to a person in one environment, and that having that information generated easily. But if you'll notice that up until now, we had things in parallel. But this new step that we're going to take for gaming will allow us to go forward and take a new step. It's not just information for you to do something, but I'll allow you to build an activity directly using gaming techniques. And here we'll find problems I mentioned earlier. I've got to be able to make it possible for a professional to do this simply without having to understand the technology that's running below. And the strategy is a puzzle strategy. You'll see that we've got like a mechanism of puzzles where the professional will build, by linking pieces together, an activity. In this case, the activity is where the teacher is teaching or showing the human body. It's simply that, combining the pieces differently at will and constructing a type of game, which is what you would see on the right. With your mobile device, each student would receive the mobile device and be able to identify the nose, and using the poster, the student would have to indicate, show the nose, and if he makes a correct choice, the system would respond properly through a song or through something that would motivate the user and generate some sort of satisfaction in order for it to interest the user and acquire this information and this knowledge. And this is not something just for this case, but all types of cases. But we'd always go about it by the same procedure. Pool type knowledge, where the professional can build on an activity, and then we would use it further with individuals. And the last thing we're including is another environment that is available to me, and I can offer other alternatives to other individuals with disabilities, motor disabilities. Everything that I was telling you earlier about the gaming and such is also going to be available from another type of system based on systems using other elements for accessibility, capturing images, etc., which will allow other types of persons who weren't able until now, haven't been able until now to get this information, to get it. And for my part, this is all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tomas, and you've done a really good job. Even though we've had this little problem with technology in the presentation, you have done a great job in resolving it. And any questions right now about Tomas's presentation? Would anyone like to ask something later on? At the end of the forum panel, we might have time for more questions and for debate, but does anyone have anything specific for Tomas right now? I've got one little question. It's something that concerns me. Of all the technologies we have now, which is that where you see the greatest possibilities? We have so many that are available to us to do things, multimedia, gaming, etc., QR. Where do you think things are headed in the world to be able to take advantage of these technologies?
If you allow me, this is my own personal opinion. With this type of processes which require an effort for the person who's using them, motivation is a must. Having someone encourage, motivate us is primary, and it's paramount to all this process. Gamification with different elements that are very attractive, really, like, for example, the mobile devices, the audio elements. If you've had the chance to work with these type of things and with people with cognitive impairments or children even, you will see that this is the case. So motivation is very important, and it really encourages them. And if you combine them with the adequate methodologies, I believe that is the key. Technology as such is just a tool, but I'm very hopeful, and I really think it's going to be a roaring success. Splendid, really. Let's move on to the next speaker, Ivan Carmona, who's a social consultant in Irunen. He has worked with numerous international projects. He has been a social researcher for the last 11 years. He is going to present ECATIC. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to talk to you about ECATIC employment with the support of the ICTs. This is a project supported by on the foundation, developed by Irunion, and the main goal is to foster labor inclusion by means of labor with support for people with disabilities and the possibilities given to us by the ICTs. And I'll talk to you about the different apps to be used on smartphones. In line with what Thomas said, employment with support is key here. With different users, all the users of the royal decree, so the people with brain palsy, with intellectual disabilities, hearing loss, and visual impairments. And since the very beginning of the project, we wanted to include the final users, and that's the reason why since the very beginning we involved all the different confederations for people with disabilities to know their what their experience was in fostering employability among users, and to know what their needs were and what they needed from ECATIC. Throughout all these stages, there has been numerous iterations. We ran a 3-month pilot test with 6 entities from Spain. They were testing ECATIC with their employees until we went live in July. We launched the app in July. What are the values behind ECATIC? What is the value proposition? A very attractive ICT format. I want to go fast because I really want to show you what is the environment both for trainers and for workers. And as you will see, it is extremely user-friendly with very easy icons, which really comprises the different task resources that both trainers and other people need, and allowing the easy and quick exchange of materials and facilitating communication between users and trainers throughout emails, for example, or even video conferences, but also making extensive use of ICTs, thus reducing the social stigma that sometimes disabilities provoke, and fostering the overall employability. ECATIC, as you will see, has 2 different working environments. On the one hand, the environment for the tutor, who is going to carry out a monitoring of all the tasks to be completed by employees, but these tools can also be checked by employees at their workplace and to double check their tasks. This is accessible on iPads, on an Apple environment, but ECATIC is an embedded website that it's fully accessible from any browser. So tutors really have all their ICTs available. They can access them from their website, but perhaps employees can access from a mini tablet or a larger tablet. But the experience on the pilot test told us it's got to be widespread, so you can access this from any single laptop or an Android-based device, or even an Apple-based device. This is the ecosystem we have created, and I will show you the different eco site we have created. In order to gain additional information from ECATIC, you can access the different sections that you see on the slide. What is ECATIC? Who are the participating entities? What is their experience of the participating entities? And by the way, I take the opportunity to encourage everyone to use it here. There is more than 30 entities registered under our platform, by the way, and we have generated different tutorial videos, so it is useful to any entity just by using this ecosystem. And with the manuals we've uploaded. There is a little bit more information about the tool, and there is a form that you have to fill in if you want to register. Let me now show you something. There is two working environments, one for the tutor, one for the employee. This, for example, is for the tutor with 6 different sections, so you can deal with the users of the entity that is supervising the employee initiative. And you can also create different profiles for the workers, for the employees. There are 3 different profiles. A basic profile for users whose cognitive capacities are somehow limited, intermediate employees with other functionalities, and last but not least, an advanced profile, especially in cases of brain impairments. We want our users to handle their own agenda, their calendar. They don't need their tutors to prepare all that, and that's why there is 3 different profiles of employees. By far, the most dynamic thing the tutors do is the tasks. So you can prepare a timeline of tasks as detailed as the tutors' teams. The definition of the task by using videos, text, and images, whatever the tutor deems needed for the employee to carry out said activity or task. This is a database of different tasks created. Steps. How do you do a photocopy? Do you have the name of the task, a description thereof? You can even upload a picture to explain what the task is about. You can also say how long does a task take, so employees know. You can also have a well-done message. Once we have described the task, we will include as many steps as needed. 4, 10, 30, you name it. As detailed as possible. That can be changed, of course, once employees become familiar with this task, because we've realized, and this was told to us by the companies, that this is very useful at the very beginning of the laboring session, and it is also useful when other employees are still looking for a job and they are job hunting, so it really has multiple functionalities. As you can see on the slide, this is only comprised with 4 different steps. You can upload images and videos. So including more steps is as easy as to filling this form, include whatever wording you think. You can upload an image, you can upload a video, and you can even do it from your tablet, because if the tutor wants to go step by step, they can take their pictures, they can upload it to the iPad, etc. How does the user see this? Well, this is how they visualize the tasks with the different steps. The final goal is to facilitate the management of the employees. This allows tutors to plan their tasks. They can program tasks to be performed by any given employee. So you can click on any given employee, and you can visualize with an Outlook-based format. You see all the tasks that have been scheduled for today. For example, today at 6 o'clock. to make a photocopy. Tomorrow, additional tasks. It is very easy. It really allows tutors to modify the calendar and the agenda employees have. So if you're on the bus traveling to visit one client, perhaps you can modify something on the go. ECATIC also allows you to allocate different tasks. If you do it every single day, or if you just do it any other Monday or X number of days a week. You can also include alarms, and you can really visualize the monitoring of the different tasks, whether they are completed, when, at what time. So this employee number 1, for example, at 9 o'clock they had to give parcels and give different letters, but they completed this at 1:34 instead of 10 o'clock. Or perhaps on the parking lot they still have something they should have completed at 6 p.m. You can also draw monthly reports for the tutors to carry out a full monitoring of the tasks that are pending and the tasks that are completed. On the same platform, you can also upload resources, electronic resources, videos, or even contacts that the tutors need to use, or that they think that the employees need to use on a daily basis. Let me walk you through the environment the employees will face. We are going to give you a few tablets if you want to take a look at those. It's the same touch and feel. The same touch and feel that you see on the iPad is the one that you see on the screen. User-friendly, very limited icons. This is the most simple profile and the basic one. The different tasks to be completed today, the calendar, the contacts, the resources uploaded by the tutors, and additionally a map functionality with frequently visited spots. If you, for example, have to go out of the office, if the employee has to go out of the office, well, a map for them to be fully oriented. And with the iPad, you've got a very good functionality because you've got FaceTime with iPad. And with this link, just by clicking this link, you see the picture of the tutor, you can have direct access. If you need to contact your tutor for any given reason, in case of an emergency, you can automatically send an email or even do FaceTime with them. This employee, for example, had a task from 6 to 7. So these are the steps to do a photocopy. How this will turn out. For example, you see the image. These are the different steps. Introduction, the steps to make a photocopy. Step number 1. So turn on the photocopy machine. Step number 2, lift up the lid. 3, put the original document on the tray. And if you need to make any questions, and if you need to ask any questions to the tutor when you make the photocopy, you have FaceTime and you can access them easily. Step number 4, to copy. Press the copy button. You've completed the task, and well done will appear on the screen. You go back to the home menu. These are the two environments. If you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to ask them. In terms of the usability of these type of tools, tablets, smartphones, you're just giving it for granted. You're giving for granted that they will have these smartphones and tablets. So the entities that are cooperating with the CATIC, how did they handle this situation, like giving an iPad or any type of device to all the people they are working with, giving a tablet or giving a smartphone, because that's it's one of the greatest difficulties. You can access ECATIC from any browser. So the tutor can access ECATIC through the laptop from the job place, for example. In general terms, all the tutors have a smartphone or even an iPad. They can access it from any given mobile device. And how about employees? Well, there are numerous possibilities depending on the job post. And many of them had smartphones, of course. Some others had tablets, or perhaps the companies had given them tablets. Apparently, depending on the autonomous region, a tablet is considered as an adaptation to the job place. Therefore, companies can request a subsidy. Additionally, if you registered within ECATIC, ONCE Foundation has reached an agreement with Apple for a very cheap renting of the devices, of iPads specifically, in order to overcome this hurdle. But again, if you don't have an iPad, you can access from your laptop or from your smartphone. Some employees have to access it from the computer.
Good afternoon. I wanted to ask if in the list of tasks, aside from others, could you include audio, so that yes, audio exclusively, not audio but video, yes. If you're saying that the personal trainer says what he has to do, simply, well, excuse me, but I think for people with auditive disabilities, it would be easier to do it all together. That's why you have the possibility of adding the video where you have the image and the audio and supplement one thing with the other. I don't know if you've considered this support. We all need supports. We need someone who coordinates us and who assigns us tasks. There are different levels where some people need more supports than others, or different supports. And the matter is the applications serve for the trainers at each center of employment, where people are doing different tasks. Someone has to coordinate. I don't know if there could be someone who organizes the task. It could be the trainer or someone else. Well, it's all about facilitating the planning for the workers, and so that the trainer and the people providing support can make that, but it's not for the programming of the trainers themselves. And you hadn't considered that in the future? Well, right now what we've seen through the pilot is that not only does this have an application in jobs, but also in training. This material could be perfectly used in education. I understand that the development of materials and contents has been quite laborious. Or am I wrong? I think one of the difficulties of developing this tool is that. You mean the task that the trainer prepares? Yes. Elaboration of videos, images, all that ultimately requires work. You might have 6 persons providing support to the trainer. I don't know what number of persons you've established as being necessary. There are all sorts of tasks that could even vary aside from content. So that gap or difficulty, how can you go about solving it? Well, that's something that the entities mentioned to us. At the beginning, it is, well, I must say that a lot was done on paper up until now in a very rudimentary way. So that means that this involves a little more preparation of those tasks, but then the task can be applied to all workers, to all employees, and you can assign it to one person today, one employee today, but then to others later down the road, and things become much more efficient this way. Of course, you do have to sit down and make this description at the outset, because the person needs that step-by-step explanation. But you were doing it before on a one-to-one basis, on paper maybe. So, but now this makes it much easier for the user to access this in a more visual and immediate way and more intuitive way. These devices give users a lot of self-esteem, autonomy. They're very recommendable. Well, before we go on, let's move on to Iñaki's. Iñaki Raola is the next speaker. He works in Catalogaya. He has had more than 15 years experience in accessibility projects. Iñaki will talk to us now about accessibility in employment. Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank the ONCE Foundation for giving me this opportunity to be here today at this International Congress to be able to explain my project. It's something we've really dedicated a lot of effort and time and passion to. And we're reaching a moment where the results of an application have been applied to an environment for employment. And I'm going to show a little video so you can understand who we are. Just a moment. This will explain Catalogaya. I'm trying to put up a video.
Somos una iniciativa de economía social con más de 30 años de experiencia, contribuyendo con el empleo y el tejido industrial de Guipúzcoa. Nuestra misión es la creación y el mantenimiento de empleo de personas con discapacidad en riesgo de exclusión sociolaboral. Catea Legalla es propiedad de todas las personas que trabajamos en Catea Legalla y nuestros valores son la responsabilidad, el respeto, la confianza en las personas y el compromiso con la sociedad.
Associated with our society.
Desde nuestra doble condición de
From our
economía
double
social,
position,
tenemos una
we
función al
have
servicio de
a
Guipúzcoa
function
y completamos
for
una
our
red que sostiene el
community
empleo de las personas que
to
más lo
maintain
necesitan.
work for those
Directamente
persons who
empleamos
most
en
need it.
nuestros
We
centros
directly
alrededor
employ
de 750
more than
personas con discapacidad.
750
Somos
persons
una
with
realidad en la que
disabilities.
junto
We
con
are
las
a
propias
reality.
personas participan
We're
la
together
Diputación Foral de
with
Guipúzcoa,
others.
la Fundación
We have
ONCE y el Grupo UREA,
ONCE
todas
and
ellas
the local
instituciones
governments
referentes
and
en la materia y
foundations
en el territorio.
involved in our efforts.
Desde el primer momento en
From
Cadea
the
Legalla tenemos el
outset
reto de la
of
mejora
our
en la
creation,
empleabilidad de personas con distintos
we
tipos de
have worked with
discapacidad
people
y contamos
with
con una
different types
metodología para ello.
of disabilities,
Para
and we
este
have
fin,
different
disponemos de
methodologies for
herramientas
this
propias como
purpose.
Urratxes
We have
Urrats, que mide todas las
methodologies that
competencias e identifica los planes de empleabilidad.
identify
El
plans of
servicio de intermediación de
employability,
personas con discapacidad
and we
sensorial,
have
SIPS,
persons with
planes
sensorial
personalizados de apoyo a las
disabilities,
personas, PTAs,
and
y
we
el
have
servicio de orientación
PTAs and
laboral.
services for them that are specific.
Cadea Legalla está
Our
especializada en la
association
gestión
is
y realización
specialized
de
in
procesos
managing
productivos y en la subcontratación
productive
industrial.
processes.
Las principales
And
empresas del tejido
the
empresarial del
main
territorio
fiber
forman
of
parte de los 100
employment in our
clientes que trabajan con
territory
Cadea
is
Legalla y contribuyendo
part
con su
of
fin
the,
social encuentran respuesta a sus necesidades
the
de
main fiber
desarrollo.
of employment are involved in our project.
La orientación al cliente y la
Customer
confianza en las personas son los
orientation and
pilares en los
people
que
are the
soporta un
pillars on
servicio
which we
profesional,
support
flexible y competitivo a nuestros
ourselves, and
clientes
this
en
makes
los
us
12 talleres que
competitive in the
disponemos en
different
Guipúzcoa.
workshops that we offer.
Nuestros procesos se
Our
rigen por la norma
processes
ISO
are
9000,
guided by
en la que para el
ANOR
montaje de cableados
to
eléctricos y
guarantee
componentes para equipamiento
quality,
industrial de
and
baja
we
tensión,
have
estamos
uh,
certificados al igual que para distintos servicios de
certification
apoyo a las personas con
for
discapacidad.
all of these measures.
Todo esto es posible gracias
This
al
is
compromiso,
thanks
la
to the
participación
commitment, the
y la
participation,
corresponsabilidad de
and
las
the
personas que formamos
responsibility of
parte
the
de Cadea
persons who
Legalla.
are
Entendemos
part of
la doble
Catalagaya.
dimensión entre la
We
función
have a
social
double
que Cadea Legalla representa
dimension
y las
between the
exigencias del
persons
mercado
who
al
are
cliente.
involved in
Todas
Catalagaya
las
and
personas que
the
componen Cadea
market.
Legalla
Everyone
han
who is
hecho de
part of
esta una
Catalagaya
organización
has made
fiable,
have made this
rigurosa,
a
transparente
reliable,
y de buenas
transparent, and
prácticas
rigorous
reconocida por las
organization with
empresas,
good
las
practices
instituciones y
recognized
las
by
propias
companies,
personas con distintas
institutions,
capacidades.
and persons with
Además,
disabilities.
colaboramos con las asociaciones
We
referentes en el empleo de
collaborate
personas con
with
discapacidad.
companies
Cadea Legalla,
and
somos
organizations
servicio y
working
desarrollo con
together
las empresas.
with persons with
Cadea
disabilities.
Legalla, somos
We
empleo de personas con
employ
distintas
persons with
capacidades.
different types of
Cadea
disabilities.
Legalla, somos compromiso con Guipúzcoa
Catalagaya
y con
is
la
a
sociedad.
commitment to Guipúzcoa, the Basque Country, and society.
Muy bien. Bueno, pues eso es Catalagaya.
That's Catalagaya, therefore. And to update the data that was shown in the video, I can say that today we now have 850 professionals, not 750 as the video stated, and 33% have severe disabilities. Before the crisis, we had reached the figure of 1,000 professionals with disabilities, but we've bounced back after the worst of the crisis and are now at 850. 60% have physical difficulties or disabilities, 20% sensorial, 18% mental disabilities, and 2% intellectual disabilities. There's a great variety in our organization. We have 12 different workshops throughout our territory, and at each one we are exclusively working with industrial training, not with other sectors like services, but with manufacturing. Almost all are located in Guipúzcoa. Many are in the automotion sector with delivery, quality, etc. The project has been framed in a specific workshop in Acotia, where we have a customer called Alcorta Forging Group. Alcorta Forging Group is a forgery where automobile parts are made, and we make the visual control of those parts. If there's some sort of defect, we take note of it and classify it. And currently, we have 100 persons employed. Before, there were only 3, 4, 5, and little by little, this customer has raised the number, and it's expected to go up 12 per year. So we'll see tools being implemented in more and more areas. And why have we thought about contents of accessibility in this workshop? Well, in the area, there was something quite peculiar. It doesn't always happen. As we said, this customer is very demanding and has digits of 2 growth. And the reality was that we had workers in our area that could undertake the task 100% without problems. One part of this task is classifying parts, and the other is for completing all the documentation necessary with number 1 customer in automation. And that's where we had to convince people. We had people with disabilities knocking on our door. We would interview them, look at their capabilities, and unfortunately many times we would have to say no, because the second part of their task was something they were not going to be able to undertake, and that was just really unfortunate. The customer was satisfied with Acate La Gaya, but they wanted to increase the number of persons employed through our association. So we started thinking, we've got to do something. We've got to come up with a solution. These people who cannot do this work right now should be able to, and that's when we came up with Caliata Accessible. This is a tool, a global management tool, focused especially on the management already implemented and meant to facilitate to the maximum the filling out of information, make it as easy as possible for the employees. We've got an application that we manage which more or less meets this obligation. It's a tool that works in an environment where we have to introduce new applications that will improve the insertion of persons with disabilities. So we've got a loop here where we're working with a very demanding customer in the automobile sector, and we've got some quality requirements. And since we're a special employment association, we're having to work just like anyone else. We don't have special considerations. We have to make sure that our customer is satisfied, and this is all done by workers who have disabilities. So that's where accessibility is important. We have objectives that at the beginning we framed along 3 lines. The first and most important of all was improving the employability of our persons who had real difficulties for getting into this type of job position. The second was to increase competitiveness through professionalization. And if anything has been done, we've become more professional and are taken the step to make our persons more autonomous and better equipped for their jobs. The third and not less important objective has been to achieve that make our customers more competitive. And how could we go about that, you might ask? Well, the information that we capture in this selection of parts through an application that exists, we see that in 2 hours' time, these parts are included in a report that the customer has at its center, and this means that depending on the time, the type of defect, we are pre-selecting in a way that customers can make changes in their production and overcome those defects more quickly and get benefits, profits more quickly. So that's a loop where we've got these 3 big objectives. Accessible quality has different modules. I'm just explaining the most important now. The most important certainly is that for operators. We'll look at it to see what it's like in a minute. We've got another module that is related with quality, both with documentation quality and registers. It's got a documentary registry or part that's very well documented, and another part where the managers of the workshop try to give instructions, operational instructions that are as accessible as possible, with a lot of photos, with very clear indications. And it's here in this application so that the workers at the factory can check this documentation. They must do that before they go into work every day. And then we have an approval model that we will look at a little later on, where we say what worker is capable for what task. Earlier I talked a bit about the fiber or the fabric of this application, but the workings of it. We've got it uploaded in a central platform that we have in Hernani. We have a replication that's identical in Escoltia at our workshop there, and we have tactile screens on, and we use cloud computing, which allow people to get this information and become enriched by it. Once we've got the initial data of an order for the factory, we have a roadmap where we get the fundamental information that is required by the workers to start working with those pieces, and at all times using the tactile screen they have access to this information. As I mentioned earlier, our biggest difficulties have been in how to go about making sure that the employees on the floor could fill out this information easily. As we mentioned before, half a year ago, we had big parcels of paper that for us were hard to understand. So you can imagine that out on the factory floor, this was really difficult. We've got 2 examples of the documentation we had to fill out because the customer demanded that we do, and we didn't have a lot of leeway. So with screens of that type right now, we've been able to achieve screens, tactile screens on each working line, where the worker 99% of the time doesn't have to write anything. It's a tactile screen, and all sorts of defects have been listed, where the worker can make a selection and click or touch on the right point, because with the automated pointing system, he can make the direct selection.
With regards to the remaining 5%, if the employee has to include some keyword, he's been told all he has to do is to click on the picture. He will have a pop-up screen with remarks, for example, and with a word fault or lack of material, shortage of material. So automatically, the client will know what to do in order to overcome this defaulted part. Not only was it difficult to fill in the information, but also to carry out different periodical controls. This is one type of control that we used to do. The head of service or the plant manager or the tutor would do it because oftentimes employees couldn't really do it. Instead of having automated registries on the screen, we now have a system whereby we ask very straightforward questions, very simple questions, giving a yes or a no for an answer. Or did you use clam number 1, for example? This is a control that we impose upon workers. So all they have to do is that the code of this clam coincides really. They click on yes or no. And if the answer is yes, go ahead. Otherwise, they'll have to go to the workshop and get it. And these are all the controls we carry out. So we have a fully guaranteed verification process. As I said before, the standardization module, just to give you an idea, is a module that is extremely relevant to us in order to make sure that employees are carrying out their tasks in a safety manner. We have more than 500 references that are verified as of today, and more than 100 employees in our company. So we have more than 50,000 crossing points or things we need to verify. Per reference, we have the standardization and uploading into the app. If this employee is capable to do this task, to perform this task or not. We've got 4 types of standardizations. The first one, a fully standardized employee. That means that they've been fully capable of carrying out the task. Never means that the employee has never performed the task, but after due training and diligence, they can perform it. The lack of standardization is the third one. That means that in the last 3 months, the employee hasn't performed that task, and perhaps they need additional tuning up and they need to brush up on their tasks and skills. And the last one is unauthorized. For X number of reasons, they cannot perform that task. One of the challenges and really one of the milestones with this app is that we've increased by 35% the number of employees that are now standardized. So moving from unauthorized to standardized. So, for example, employees who were not authorized to perform whatever task, you name it, because they found it difficult to fill in information. Thanks to this app, roughly 35% of them have been moved from unauthorized to fully standardized. I'll be short and sweet here. Now, alarms. Different alarms that let you know that the employee is performing an adequate task. And he makes us aware of certain risky situations. Another application we have is the browsing of information. We can see how many tasks have we performed, who performed the task. Now we are simplifying the difficulties, really endless pieces of information. I want to comment on how clients access the platform. I just want to say that when we presented this to two key customers, the answer was, when are you going to roll this out? Please launch this app, because the information that you're giving us on a weekly basis, we will have it every 2 hours, and that is most valuable. You wouldn't think how valuable this is to us all. So now we are working with a specific customer who is actually reading the results, the outcome of this, and he's fully satisfied. I won't talk to you about hardware or software, because I'm running out of time, really. But touch screens are major. 17 inches touch screen, so the images that you can see, both in terms of effect, you can really see them properly, that they are clear enough. It is very important. Apart from the software, the hardware here is major, and we have used QR code readers instead of barcode scanners, and the planning for the implementation and rolling out of the project took us some time. It is a very demanding project. With the first attempt, we are going back to end of 2012. But by June 2013, we were very clear about it. We presented it in different forums, and as of today, it's fully implemented at the plant in more than 50%, and hopefully by 2015 it be fully implemented, because the next step is to have this process fully certified with a 9001 standard, ISO 9001, by the end of this year. And the main approach of this would be fully accessible quality. The impact of the project is the generation of 100 job places. We had to be accessible, greater empowerment of our individuals. There is a very high rotation at our plant, more than 15%, but we want a lot of people with disabilities to access platform, and also we have created 30 new job posts. The impact is the social benefit, the return to the society, the professionalization of employees, among others. This is a very hefty sum. It's a very important budget that we have. The KL budget, 250,000 euros of cost, out of which most of it are 110,000 euros corresponding to ourselves, our headcount, our own development, and the rest has to do with hardware. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Alambide and the UNCE Foundation for cooperating in this project. Without their help, this wouldn't have been a reality, and we wouldn't be here today presenting our project. So thank you once again for your contribution. This is the project team. KL is hands-on with this application. Everyone has been fully devoted to this project. All the managers are involved, and all the different departments in KL have been taking part in this project. The head of project, IT, human resources, quality department, everyone's been involved. Just to finalize, these are 3 pictures. This is the plant site in Azkoitia, with different production lines. At the end, you see a touch screen, and on the screen now you will see one of our employees at the plant. He's already selected one batch, and he's uploaded his information on the application. What can we expect from the future? As Mafalda put it, to continue generating opportunities with the aim of improving employability for people with disabilities, increasing this to other KL plans. Thank you very much indeed. We're at your disposal for anything you may need. Thank you very much.
Bueno, pues aprovechamos los minutos que ya nos hemos pasado para preguntar cualquier cosa que...
We just have a couple of minutes left because we're running out of time, but please, if you do have any questions, do not hesitate to ask them.
Gracias.
Thank you very much.
¿Qué posibilidad hay de generar, a partir de CATIC, qué posibilidad hay de generar estadísticas?
Can you draw statistics? Can you... did you mention this over your talk? Can you really know?
Quiero decir, la posibilidad de generar estadísticas a partir de cuántas veces el trabajador con discapacidad...
How many times people with disabilities, employees with disabilities access this information? It is very useful for us, like labor preparation professionals, to know how accessible this tool is and how often the people with disabilities check it. Access to the application, well, we don't really register that. But we draw different monthly reports to have a full understanding of completed tasks. We don't really know how often they accessed the device. Any further questions? Yes, I believe someone wants to ask another question.
Hola, yo también tenía una pregunta para Iván.
I have a question for Ivan, because we're very close and I'd like to have a conversation with him. We're just outside with our stand in Asiste. But anyway, my question is twofold, really. Yes, you've carried out a 3-month pilot project. Can you give us figures, number of users, number of sessions, duration? But also, and most importantly, what was the greatest hurdle you encountered with this pilot test? Yes, you do have access to users indeed, but when you work with users during the sessions, what is the greatest hurdle you have encountered? Thank you. Well, 6 entities participated in the project, 15 employees, 11 labor insertion professionals. So it's roughly 3 months of work with different user profiles and different profiles of employees in different job posts. So on the one hand, as I said before, there is a widespread number of job posts that requested a lot of access to smartphones and other smart devices. But one of the outcomes of the pilot test is that before the pilot test, the programming of the task from the tutor to employees is not the way it was on the screen. It was a very simplistic one. It wasn't visual at all. It doesn't have an outlook touch and feel. It was much more complicated. And tutors said, this should really facilitate our lives, okay? It cannot complicate things further, please. And that's why we changed the programming of the tasks so that they could handle it on the spot, really, to change it on the spot, to do it in a lean and easier fashion. The second question is, are you using this pilot test in order to draw formal assessments and to assess the interfaces and the usability? Do you have any metrics, really, in terms of interaction and usability. As I said before, the app is fully accessible from the website. During the research stage, research and development, as we involved all the confederations for people with disabilities, everyone was involved, so the icons changed so many times, the text and the wording also changed, even the structure. So during the development stage, we even had two versions of the prototype, and even the final prototype changed afterwards. We have no specific metrics of an assessment, or no, not really, sorry, but with that process, with the different iterations upon the development of the platform, that was key, because what we needed is for this to be fully adjusted to the needs of tutors and employees. It included all the profiles of people with disabilities pursuant to the royal decree. So we have realized that many things would have been changed by the entities, but I believe we have reached widespread consensus and comprising all the requirements posed by the different entities. I'm not sure I replied to your question properly. Yes, indeed. Any further questions? Well, so I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the presence of all the attendees, to thank the support teams, the organization, and the speakers for all the preparation efforts. Tomás, Ivan, Iñaki, thank you very much indeed, and see you soon. Thank you.